Hey, what's going on, YouTube? So I'm sitting in my home kingdom, farming up just as much mana as I can possibly get. We've got about 2 days before our KVK matchup's announced. We're registered for Rise of the Dragon. I think most servers are registered for that too. And anyway, a couple people asked me about a potential pairing with Kuma and Mogro. And the idea is, Kuma obviously does that drain effect. That's really good against enemy infantry in particular. And what Mogro does is, among other things, he spreads debuffs to nearby enemy legions. And the idea was you drain the target and then you spread that drain. And so if you have a bunch of infantry you're fighting, you can drain them all. It helps your alliance. Hey, is that a good idea? And I'm like, that's interesting. I'm not sure it's going to work. And my first question is, does drain even count as a debuff? Well, that's an easy thing to test, right? So what I did is I took Kuma and I sent him out with a Berserk Phaedrake. The Berserk really wants to inflict debuffs on the enemy. It gets stacks, and the more debuffs it inflicts, the more damage it does. And it turns out, yes, Drain does count as a debuff. The Berserk considers it such. Now, does that make the Berserk a good pet with Kuma? No, it doesn't. Really, the only debuff Kuma is doing is the Drain effect itself, so he just doesn't get enough stacks for the Berserk. Now, if you hit multiple legions with the Drain, and you hit basically every legion in melee range, all those count as individual stacks. But even in that case, if you're in melee with a lot of enemy legions, you'd much rather have one of those melee pets like the Moss Rock, obviously that's ideal, or something like a Poison Lizard or a Bruin Bear even. Okay, so the next question is, how is this going to interact with Mogro's skill? Let's just remind ourselves what the Drain skill does. It reduces your target per rage cycle by 20%, and other nearby targets per rage cycle by 10%. And that stacks up to a maximum of 50% on your target and 30% for the splash legions, if you will. The interesting thing with Mogro is his rage skill also does a HP decrease. It gives them bruised, which is a minus 30%. That only lasts 3 seconds. Kuma's drain lasts until the end of combat. But still, do these things stack, or are they going to overwrite each other? How are they going to interact? So, did some testing. What's the answer? The answer is this is super strong and broken. I'm not sure this is working as intended, but right now it is the best way in the game to annihilate enemy tanks. Alright, on your target, the drain effect stacks with the bruise effect. Let's say you've been in combat long enough to get 3 rage cycles out, so this is maxed out. Drains at 50%, and then every time Mogro does his skill, it'll stack on top of that, giving you 80% HP reduction in total. Obviously, that's super strong. 80% HP reduction is excellent. Okay, what about the splash targets? If you thought your main target was good, the splash target is like literally insanely broken. Let me tell you how this is working in the game right now. Okay, let's say again you've been in combat long enough that everyone's got max stacks of drains, so your main target's 50% off, and all the splash targets are 30% off, right? What's going to happen is that Mogro's second skill is going to transfer the main drain, the 50% drain, on top of the 30% drain, and they're going to stack, so that's an 80% drain. But wait, there's more. He's also going to put bruised on them, so they'll be at a combined total of a negative 110% hit points. Okay, look, I wasn't a math major, but the math ain't math in here. It seems like if you're at negative 110% hit points, you should be dead already. Okay, I want to talk through some battle logs here to demonstrate this is actually having a very significant effect. It's not just numbers on the screen here. Let's take a look at turn 20 here, just for an example. Now, on turn 20, I'd gotten the enemy HP down negative 10% only, so only a small reduction. I have, 238,000 troops, and I launch a counterattack on that turn, and it takes out a little bit more than 300. Okay, so let's fast forward now. Let's look at turn 25. On turn 25, the HP is down 70%. I launch a counterattack, and they lose 472 troops there. Okay, so that's like a 50% increase now that I've gotten the HP down another 60%. Okay, let's fast forward to turn 50. On turn 50, I've gotten the HP down negative 110%. Now, like I said, they should have just fallen over dead there, but they didn't. What's the counterattack? The counterattack is now killing just shy of 700 troops. I don't know what their true HP is at this point because it's clearly not on negative 110%, but it's also clearly having a very significant effect even over the negative 70% because I'm doing better than double counterattacks right now with substantially fewer troops. But getting these HP reductions up to very high numbers does have an impact. Like I said earlier, I'm not sure this is working as intended. Drain stacking with Mogro's effect, they're both HP reductions, but I can kind of see that being intended because they're called different things. Kuma's effect is called Drained, Mogro's effect is called Bruised, so okay, maybe those should stack, but clearly there's no reason that the main 50% drain should be able to be transferred onto a splash target that already has a 30% drain, and they both stack. On top of that, the game's displaying a negative 110% HP stat. That's clearly wrong. They should just fall over dead, so I don't know what the real number is there. Okay, is there any way to mitigate this problem? There's one way, and that's to send out your own infantry that'll gain HP during the course of the battle. Now, the problem is, while there are a couple infantry heroes, Skogul, Lake Wan, I mean, you could send out a Friendship Bear, I guess, that gain HP. None of them gain nearly enough HP to even really mitigate the 110% reduction you might be facing from the Mogro-Kuma combination. The only infantry hero that really comes close to that is Kuma himself, who through his drain effect can gain up to 100% HP. So send your Kuma out. Alright, second question, what should you do? Right now, you should pair Kuma and Mogro together when you're in those big fights, because they're going to make enemy front lines, enemy infantry feel like paper mache, and you're going to cut through them like a hot knife through butter. I don't expect this to last very long. I don't think this is working as intended. I would expect them to fix this relatively quickly. And hey, that's all I got for you today, and until next time, you stay classy, Belleron.